I apologize. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Shelly Thompson. I'm the interim minister here at Calgary Unitarians. And today is a very special day. We have a very special guest. Wakefield Brewster is here with us. You'll be meeting him and hearing about him. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, woo! We're so excited. I am so excited. So, we're doing things a little bit differently today. It's not going to look like the usual order of service. We're shaking things up. So the first thing I'd like us to do, actually, is to rise in body or spirit. And we're going to greet one another. And, of course, nowadays the protocols have changed. A lovely namaste is nice and safe. Air kisses, waves, all of these things are perfectly fine. You don't have to shake hands and pass the peace or the COVID. And so we'll rise in body or spirit, and we're going to say hi to everybody on Zoom. Hello, Zoom land. So please join me. Good morning, everybody. We love you. Good to see you. We're also waving at the AV techs in the booth. Hi, y'all, and good morning to each and every one of you. I see some families back in the house. Very happy to see you all here. Good morning, one and all. And of course, you're going to stay for coffee hour. We can talk some more and eat cookies and drink coffee and all that good stuff. Now, don't get too comfortable, because I want you to get back up again in body or spirit. We're going to do a little mood music here. My mood today is happy. So we are going to sing the song Happy that you may remember from Despicable Me. It's with Pharrell Williams. And in this video, everybody's busting out their moves. So I want to see you all bust out your move. Whatever your authentic move is, that might just be the queen screwing in the light bulb. It might be the jazz hands. Whatever your move is, I want you to bust it out for me so I can see what your mood is today and how you're feeling, and we can all get into our embodied, expressive, resilient selves today. Are you ready for this? It's going to be fun. And please sing along, clap along, if you will, if you feel like a room without a roof. All right, let's cue Pharrell. Hey, we're moving and shaking. There's Bretton and Brandis, my friends. Bretton's going to do our welcome and land acknowledgement. Woohoo!
Good morning. Welcome to the home of the Calgary Unitarians. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey for faith or search for meaning, welcome. If you are visiting for the first time, or the first time in a long time, know that we are grateful to have you with us. We come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and act for a just and sustainable world. My name is Bretton Saunders, and my pronouns are she and her. I started coming to this congregation about 2.5 years ago because I was yearning to connect with something bigger than myself. What I found at Calgary Unitarians is meaningful connections and a welcoming community that shares my values. Calgary Unitarians is also really important to me because it allows me to explore spirituality in a non-dogmatic approach. If you are here in person, please join us after service for coffee in Wickenden Hall. If you are joining us online, please join us after the service for a virtual coffee hour. Here we will meet in small breakout rooms and get a chance to visit. Now, wherever you are, let us remember and acknowledge the traditional territories and languages of all whose ancestors were here before us. We recognize our responsibility to be stewards of this land and acknowledge that we do so in cooperation with the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy of Southern Alberta, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Dene First Nations band, Tsuut'ina, and the Nakota First Nation, also known as Stoti. Alberta's Nakota's First Nations is comprised of 3 bands, Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. Mohkinstsis, also known as the City of Calgary, is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. In offering a land acknowledgement, we honor those who have long been her stewards and accept our shared responsibility for being good caretakers. We acknowledge that Treaty 7 was entered into as a collaboration between settlers and Indigenous people, making us all treaty people.
Our flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith, the holding chalice of community, the fire of our commitment to live our values and make the world a more just, equitable, and compassionate place. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. We kindle now the flame of our liberal religious heritage. In its glow, may our reason and our passion lead us to be true to ourselves, true to each other, and true to that which we may together become. Good morning, one and all. Again, I'm Reverend Shelly Thompson. My pronouns are she and her, and I am delighted to be the interim minister here at Calgary Unitarians. You are all most welcome.
All right, there's my microphone. Many of you know me. I'm Deary, Director of Religious Education, Sheila McMaster, and I'm so happy to be here this morning. We have 8 children and youth with us, which is an 800% increase from last week. So thank you for coming. And it's so nice to see everybody. As many of you know, April is National Poetry Month, and today we have Acrostic Poems, which is basically where you take a word and then for each letter you kind of write something about it. So I've got today's activity, we got a friend acrostic poem, and you'd be like, for Shelly, you'd be like, fun. What starts with R? That's a good thing about Shelly. Reverend, yes. Interesting. So you can go on and on. I could go on and on. But we're going to be doing that today. And we also have some other poetry ideas for our children and youth today. And the youth are meeting at 1 o'clock today, 1 to 2. So if there's any youth watching on the screen out there in Zoom land, we're doing Dungeons and Dragons, which is really fun, and it's a great way to connect. And so today we're making our characters. So I'm very excited about that as well. And why friendship? And you might think, oh, we're doing poems talking about friendship. Why friendship? And it goes back to our 7th principle. Is that my hair again? That's my hair. It's going back to our 7th principle, which is our interdependent web of connection. And connection is what we're focusing on, because what you focus on is what you feel. And I think we all need a little bit more connection now as we're getting back into the swing of things. And why is story important? So every week I tell a story, many of you know, and you might be thinking to yourself, why is this important? Why are stories so important to us? And I'm going to tell you a true story. It's about this guy. He went on vacation, and he's in the savannah, and it's open plains, and all of a sudden he sees these white rhinos, and they're thundering towards him. And when you're standing there, you can feel the thundering. Your feet are going like this, and you're not even moving. Yes, like that. And he has read that if a rhino is coming towards you, they have terrible eyesight, but they have really good sense of smell, and they can feel the motion in the ground. So if he was to run, he would be dead. You know, those sharp horns would skewer him, and he would get these piercings he didn't intend to have. And so he remembered, and he stood his ground as this white rhino's thundering towards him. And about 20 feet away, the rhino stopped and lost interest and started to wander away. And just when he was thinking it was safe, that he could start to get back to camp, the wind shifted, and the rhino smelled him again on the air. And they started thundering towards him, and he stood his ground, and he's like, I hope I'm right. And they stopped when they were 10 feet away and wandered away. And he thought, oh, okay. And when he got back to camp that night, you have nothing else to do around the campfire, as all our ancestors did. There was no Netflix. There was no TV. There was no internet. How boring. But they had to do what? Tell stories, that's right. And so he told his white rhino story about what happened to him, right? And he was thinking about that, and he realized, telling this story is not just entertainment. The next week, if someone's out in the grasslands and a white rhino comes at them, what are they going to know? They're going to know not to run because of his story. So our very survival depends on the quality of people you're sitting around the fire with, if they have some good stories for you, but also listening to stories. And so that is why stories are so important to us. It's in our DNA, right? It keeps us alive, right? And the other thing I thought, what else is important to us? And I was thinking about fun. I thought about all the times that, kids, they find ways to find fun and enjoyment in just the simplest things all day long. All day long. They're doing things. And what do we say sometimes? Okay, me as a parent, sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? Stop dawdling. A to B, A to B. We have a to-do list. Let's get her done, right? And what they're hearing is, stop having fun. And I have to say, I'm the other person in my household who likes to have fun, besides my 11-year-old daughter, is my husband, Arno. And so cue the banana photo. He is always doing little things to have fun. He's never met a banana that he does not draw on. He did this morning. These are pirate bananas. And so I could be like, hurry up, we don't want to be late for the service. What are you doing? That's what he's doing. And so I have to realize, fun is also a very important part of our enjoyment. So today, as we're talking about poetry, you got to think, my first thought of poetry was like, oh no, poetry, that's a little boring. And then I had to stop and think, what is poetry? Poetry is a story. What is a story? Our survival. We need stories. So poetry for survival. And does poetry have to be boring? No, poetry can be fun. So I have some fun poems for you today. So next slide, please. And the first poem is called Invitation. I like this one. If you are a dreamer, come on in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by the fire. For we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in. Next slide, please. This one is called Pancake. Who wants a pancake? Sweet and piping hot. Good little Grace looks up and says, I'll take the one on top. Who else wants a pancake fresh off the griddle? Terrible Teresa smiles and says, I'll take the one in the middle. And the next slide, please, is The Invisible Boy. And here we see the invisible boy in his lovely invisible house, feeding a piece of invisible cheese to a little invisible mouse. Oh, what a beautiful picture to see. Will you draw an invisible picture for me? So today we'll be drawing some invisible pictures. And the last poem I don't have a slide for because I just want to read it to you because this encompasses to me what it's like to be a child and have that sense of fun that I want to remember, and it's called Forgotten Language. Once I spoke the language of flowers. Once I understood each word that the caterpillar said. Once I smiled in secret at the gossip of starlings and shared a conversation with the housefly in my bed. And once I heard and answered all the questions of the crickets and joined the crying of each falling, dying flake of snow. And once I spoke the language of flowers. How did it go? How did it go? And now please join me as we sing the children downstairs to our own poetry. Thank you.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace. Go now in peace, go now
Good morning. The poets are in the building, and we are armed with poems. Just so you know. It's National Poetry Month. It was instigated by the League of Canadian Poets, of which both Wakefield and I are members. And it's to make sure that we all appreciate poetry in our life and also the poets in our life. There are many, many things going on this month, and you can look it up under poetry. April is Poetry Month. One interesting thing is that on April 29th, it's called Poem in Your Pocket. And you find a poem that you just love, put it in your pocket, and have a very active day. See how many people you can share that poem with. Another one is Today's Poem. And that's happening a lot on Facebook right now, where people are posting a poem every day and just sharing it. What I really love about poetry, because I'm an oral person, I'm a storyteller, is that the spoken word poetry, the presentation of poetry. And that's why we've invited somebody as exciting as Wakefield Brewster, who's really knows a lot about and not only is he the king of the spoken word, but he's such a mentor to others and such a support for poets in helping them to find our own voice. And
That's all y'all, you know. That's you.
And that's why we're going to have hopefully have a great poetry event on Friday. He was talking to me and I was saying, oh yeah, you have to be able to pick the right poem for spoken word, right? It has to be something that comes off the page. And he said, no. I said, oh? So it made me think, because usually when I do a spoken word, I have one of my pieces like, Mayday, Mayday. Green head of mallard flashes past, purple wing flaps down, coming in for a landing, buckling on the bulrush cattail, stark rows of bird command waiting for the signal. You know, but I thought you could actually do quiet, sensitive poems as well and do them in the oral tradition. So I lately, and maybe I share this with some of you, we have lost people in our lives, and dealing with grief can be a poetic thing to do. I've found solace in it. I have written this poem to my sister, my late sister, The Art of Sitting on a Bench. Today, a white flicker of waterfall rounding a bend in the creek draws the ducks. One looking back, faltering, waiting, I can't help think like you would. Making sure the smallest hasn't lost its way. Watching as it floats closer, joins the others. As I feel you float closer. And this fine moment of the day I see for you now, not just myself, since you're gone. I try to hold them peacefully in my mind, these bright bits of life, just like the water holds the reflection of the bent willow branches here. Moments I share with your eyes, as though I've grown extra lenses. It's getting easier to do now that the city has added so many benches to the parks in this time of COVID. Perhaps many come to sit here, as if a space set aside for speaking to the dead, the only way we can, though there is no end to what we long to say. I keep you here too, in the palm of my hand, in this poem, under the voice of the sun, the speaking green world, and the loud, ever-living. And now I'd really like to present for you Wakefield Brewster, the king of Poetry Slam and spoken word. He's a resident poet at the Grand Theatre, and he's also an incubator of the Arts Commons. I'm intrigued by the idea of his production of From Page to Stage. And I really have always treasured the fact that he is a strong advocate for literacy and mental wellness and helping others find their voice. Wakefield Brewster.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wow. Thank you for having me. This is an honor to be bringing what I call poetry to you. Thank you for honoring National Poetry Month. I've never been to a service that did this before, so thank you. It's the first time I've had a congregation ringing in the month, and it's a very important month. We heard some very important things already said about what poetry is, what poetry can do, and how it belongs to all of us. I have been called a lot of things. Sometimes poet comes after those things people call me. One of those things, slam poet, I hear that. Performance poet, I prefer that. But often when it relates to the world around me, I'm often called a social poet. I'm not up here writing out my rainbows and unicorns. I'm usually writing about things that are harder, things that are darker, things that are not so nice. And it's not for shock effect or to bring anybody down, but I find humans actually bond best in darkness. Your neighbor wins 48 million. How happy are you? You don't run over there really to get the money, or you try to ignore them. It's a weird conundrum to live next to someone who's insanely happy about something fortunate that is only about them. But if that neighbor or that friend falls into depression, falls into grieving, has the simple problems of life and they're not overcoming them, where are you? You're right there. And you're bonding with them. So I like to write about the things that we actually truly bond over, and that is helping each other rise up. I have a poem I'd like to begin with because this poem is seen as very universal, and it's very old. This poem is 21 years old. This poem is H2O, and it is inspired by the Walkerton water crisis. I'm from Toronto, so I heard about this first, and I went crazy. I was so appalled and angry that once again our first world country, which has the greatest freshwater reserves on the planet, and we're known as the greatest first world country in the world, would do what we did over water and money. So like an artist, like a poet, I responded artistically, and this is the poem that came from it. In this poem, you'll hear my voice move. I work with melody, though I'm not a singer. Trust me, I can't sing. I work with rhythm, because I'm also a percussionist. I'm a classical pianist, and I'm a percussionist, and I'm also a rapper. And I've taken all of those musical abilities and put them behind my performance with literacy. You will dance, and I hope that you take these steps with me. I appreciate people feeling how they want to audibly when they hear something they do and do not like. So if you want to, make some noise because you hear something you like, please go right ahead. Poets love that. And if you hear something you don't like and you want to let me know and it's a heckle, please go ahead. Go right ahead, because it makes us feel challenged and reconsider what we've said. The reason I'm a poet is because I've tried so very hard to listen to the world so that I can earn this opportunity to speak to it. So often my poetry is about you. I'm going to begin with H2O, even though I retired this poem because it's so relevant again. You ever heard of Flint, Michigan? Yes. Right. And when I speak to students who are young and they don't know, I tell them it's a place in the States, and the town basically looks like me, and when they turn on the water, it looks like me. I ask them, do you understand anything about our indigenous communities across North America? And they give me some yeses about this and that. Do you know that they still do not have any accessible, running, clean water? It's 2022. In 2022, we can raise 10 million in 3 days for the convoy. 3 days, 10 million, just like that. And how long did it take for authorities to stop that foolishness? A couple weeks. You put an indigenous person in front of a pipeline, they'll have military there in no time. This poem is more relevant than ever. And it's universal because when you talk about water, no one is left out. This poem is H2O. There once was a time when we flowed like rhyme. Ebbs and tides flowed on our insides. We took no free rides. We just rode waves and dug sacred graves because we knew the earth saves. And when we dropped to our knees to drink at our seas, shores, eventually we ended up creating seesaws as we gazed into the depths and only saw the surface, the face of folly to come. We drank our own reflections with gluttonous vanity, gulped down gallons with thirsty profanity, draining drops like three-pointers, pollute and then shoot into the earth a dirty needle. The sewers beneath are the burning veins of acid rains. Sludge and sickness pumped through pipes. Walkerton walked in medical plights. It blacked out some lights, then led to court fights. And while the poor fight for it, the rich want to store it. We'll make you pay. We'll make you pay. The flow of H2O we gon' keep on the stay locked up. They ain't gonna die for the supply be stocked up. So forget your creation of the Canal Suez and neglectful flex on the Exxon Valdez, because oil and water, they just don't mix. But slicks and puddles gives kids heads tricks. They think that it looks pretty. You see all the colors now. They can finally touch a rainbow and make it dance like a beautiful woman. But once again, the image of life is washed away. Back to murky and muddy waters, our oceans sing the blues. Environmental channels hype to bring the bad news that we're all gonna lose, and I'm getting too confused because I used to drink my water from a bottle. I heard the vehicle of pollution was choking on the throttle. Then a rumor went about I could just not believe. I spelled Evian backwards and found I was naive. My gut is on the grieve. Believe you me, I'm enough pain, G. I first thought that I contracted ileitis or colitis, but from the water cooler, I drank gastroenteritis. You see how Mother Nature spite us? She did it, she done it, and she'll do it once again. She'll fool us into thinking we can cheat our fated end, for we put the pain in her reign and then showered her with disrespect. And we gon' thirst worse unless we get this all in check, because when the oceans all evaporate, we can't make juice some concentrate. No fluid moving up and down in the locks. No creamy whipped potatoes from a cardboard box. We have doomed ourselves a drunken dry demise in the stretching of the skin and the bulging of the eyes, because nobody tries. We'd rather drink lies. We hold fast to mistakes of the past, latch to the ludicrous and not liquid life, because we can't let go. Forget what you know. We've forgotten how to flow like water. Thank you very much. I would like to present this next poem because right away I love to bring my ma into my life in all facets and forms and aspects, and even poetry. So this poem was inspired by my ma. She's a very beautiful lady, and she really understands me, and she gave me all the chances I needed to be understood. This is a feminine positive poem. It also celebrates astrophysics. Yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson, does anyone know Neil deGrasse Tyson? He put my people in space, man. He's a hero of mine. I'm from the old Star Trek days. I'm from Spock and Kirk. I've been waiting to wear masks and act like craziness all my life. This whole COVID thing totally played to my childhood sci-fi thing. I was like, woo, it's here. Now that guy actually put us up there. He's a big hero of mine. So this poem also celebrates astrophysics, black culture, and lyricism. H2O was all monothematic. It was about water. It was inspired by an incident. You can't leave it too small. You have to welcome people into your world of words. So to write about Walkerton would be too tiny. Even if you're very worldly and up on the matters of Canada, still, you could miss it. We miss a whole lot of stuff that happens outside our door. So I couldn't just write about Walkerton because only Walkerton people would appreciate it, and they're not appreciating what happened. So I had to walk water around the world in different ways so that everyone could jump in the pool. Now that's monothematic. These are 4 major themes that I'm going to put into this poem, and they seem unrelated. And in some ways they are, and in some ways they're not. And without drawing direct relations to them, you treat different subjects and aspects of poetry in a singular poem like a patchwork quilt. Your language threads it together. So this poem is called Luna, Luna Herstory. It is time for the next. Pages must be turned, books must be burned. We shall erase the past and make time start now. For history glory caused a frown upon my brow. It was all too much for me. It was all like real TV. I was overwhelmed and swamped like an inbox. An innocent woman stoned by rocks. Tumbling, breadfruit dropping out of trees unseen with ease and green gleam. Lower spectrum introduced purples, blues, and greens again. Don't you really remember when Mama said, eat your greens, eat your greens. Reflect on those words and tell me how it seems. She knew more than she spoke. She birthed some mad thinkers, then the illogic broke. It broke and broke the back out. It stoked and smoked the blackout. And no one was prepared for what beast was unleashed upon the land. Stipulation and manipulation walking hand in hand. The illogical language then became grand, convoluted and compromised. Through bloody blue and blackened eyes, the black looked into the night like its namesake, made the spacescape words come awake, lifted the level like a lyrical Lazarus, denied the slick grip we know that time has on us, spilling through space like sugar. We are the sweetest of stars. We stay redder than Mars. Giants like Jupiter, dust in lunar winds, blowing throughout all of our travels, bringing fear to the atmosphere. Subway to Venus, y'all move it to the rear. And still, I couldn't get excited, landing on different planetary spots, the ones yet undiscovered. But you gon' tell me you uncovered it first. Prepare for the worst, for I am like the enemy in the lyrical arms race. Call me the Black Russian, cause I made it first to space, and then got celestial. Frightened, for the style is quick, fast, see? Dark speech move like that, so you don't know what happened. Traveling at the speed of light, that's why we call it rapping. Her story is the one to listen to. She brought all of us here to do what we do, and I have always loved her. Call her the moon, but really she's the sun. So I call my brother son, cause he shine like one, as we all should be, inside the Milky Way womb that we all call she. Did it for us all. Her stories were pure light. Her tales weren't tall, but we let her take the fall. It's time to bring her back and put her high beyond sight, and let her know that she's a comfort in the blackness of the night, and let history cascade like Lucifer, for he just ain't bright. Thank you. I intended, and I will, give you a selection of different pieces of poetry to give you an idea of a creative mission I am forever on, and that is, with every poem I write, I attempt to be a different poet. Of course, it's going to be Wakefield Brewster. No matter how you hear it, you know it's me, once you get to know me. I'm not Morgan Freeman yet, but, or James Earl Jones, but I'm getting there. So in this respect, I try to change not just the topics, of course, but the style, the rhyme scheme, the pulse, the meter, all the tricks. I try to rearrange them at the very, very least. Now, this poem is quite personal to me, and it's titled Blacklit. And there's entendres in the title: black, literature, lit, light. There's a few things there already. To be succinct about its description, understand that this poetry is all black poetry. I'm a black man. My whole lens is colored by what I know I look like and what you know I look like. It matters. So none of this isn't jaded by what and who I am visually and how I have to take that visual aspect and it's visceral. So this poem is how, in some ways, I see myself moving through these worlds as a black man. And this poem is blacklit. Professional tip, burp before you start your poetry. Get all the burps out. It's true, you don't want to be, you don't want to do that. That's terrible. Okay, here we go. Wait, actually, yeah. Okay. This is blacklit. I swallow some blackboard paint so I can paint. The word ain't a word, spitting ink or chalk. I still talk. A fax machine paradox proper. Truth stopper can't stop me or mock me. European MCs can't top me. When a brother gets a hold of technology, it's microphone recology. Dealing with your lame footin' cans to puppetology. I offer no apology for bovine or swine, domesticated equine for mankind. My own mind up in mixed artistic with linguistic, and I slung a hot rot like Basquiat when he brought the black thought. Bleeding paint upon paper, he changed and then deranged the sight of man, the earth shaper. He closed the eye caper, and some years later, since my brother's life broke, I realize I am a smudge, a perfect brushstroke with pretty colors, pretty colors. I am orange and yellow and red. I surprised myself when poetically bled myself. I was tongue twisted up like a dread with thoughts that wrought sticking up in my head, thrust back to life like Lazarus. Strife had me strike me a hazardous pose, wide open with wrists and neck exposed. Liquid life trickling eclectic flows from my veins. Pure fire, voodoo rains, funeral pyre. My heated aspiration to be an element, not simply elemental or even instrumental, but a song and a symphony with self-pity, sympathy. I'm conducting those in the first row who think they know. I make them all play second fiddle if they don't jump out the middle and flee like they was escaping the passage. Feces and vomit on the slavery comet founded inspiration in black and broken bones. The sounds of the lands that we call our homes, and we can all hear it, drawn to its timbre like whips to cracks, licks to backs, feet to axe. Funny how we stood taller when we lost our toes and held our heads high in a regal manner, defying the yokes, learning the language to create great stains. Kings and queens now bound in chains and walking like gods, unlike the ghosts of our gracious hosts, now passed on to the land of duppies, weighted down by the shackles of brutality that they constructed. Inside the hall of shame, each one has been inducted back to the books, back to the beginning, back to the future, what we were and what we are. Back in the black, hiding in the back row, back in the black like these cats don't know. Black like my namesake, black like death row, black like rum cake, black like afro, black like my taekwondo brothers afro dojo. Because you can't make a blank slate, because I'm the willing you can't shift my shape. I take your shots like I'm in the Russian system, off the shoulder, wrist strike to the throat. I'm a diss 'em, and I'm a talk louder, and I'm a walk prouder. I'm leading by design because this hour is mine. I leave you with the fever, then your lip catch a slap from the Anosha Bashobi Ingalosi of rap. This here is the evolution, amoeba to man, grunts to griot, slavery to bravery, cryptic like messages written on rice, rolled up in blunt papers and burned like our foremothers at the stake, hung like our forefathers dancing from trees, a painful slow waltz done in black and broken knees, please, please, please help me find the method. I talk so much that my teeth itch and my hair hurts. Lyrical spurts. I try and I try and I try. You say you want a sensitive man and then you hate me when I cry. I gotta internalize and re-energize and represent, because you know my words quick, clever, could never be spent. And in this industry, no poem C mediocrity can mess with me. Though it's not all I'll be in this here reality, I'ma flow it cause you'll know it. Black is poetry, see? Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what my timing is like. Should I do a few more or? Okay. Okay. All right. We talked about mental wellness, and I've had my struggles. I am an alcoholic and an addict. I unfortunately had some traumas at age 8, and that's when I started my drinking career. Yeah. And when I became 18, I'm an adult now. I moved and graduated to substances. And I lived that destructive lifestyle till just 5.5 years ago. So this world is still pretty fresh to me. It's still pretty new. And the one thing that I learned recovering is that mental unwellness, addiction, alcoholism, and destructive behavior pretty much hand in hand. And for a very long time, most of us did not know that or want to accept that. So trauma sucks, and I take no responsibility for what happened. The path it set me on, that is not my fault. My recovery is all mine, and I own it, and I put this out there to let people know that there is life on the other side. I was in it for over 3 decades, and I stand here in front of you. So, thank you, but I have to put this message out here and there to let people know they're not alone. Poetry often is a short story. Short stories convey messages. Messages are information, and we are living in the age of information and sharing stories. So this is all about communication. And I like to communicate some of the hardest things that I deal with because I know there's some of possibly yours. And when I write poetry that's so visceral and vulnerable and exposing, there's really no other way to write. So this poem is called Perceptions. And when I went into states of what I now know to be one of the aspects is called hyperfocus, I describe it as my brain being an ant's nest, not a hornet's nest or anything that flies, because I could feel all the feet running. It was like it split open and it was just itchy, literally itchy in my head. Can't scratch it. And the thing that I kept doing was finding myself in places that were very populated, very busy, light, color, sound, action, noise, people, movement. In Toronto, that's easy to do. Get on the TTC, Toronto Transit, get on the public transit. Just get on that. 10 million people moving around, that means it runs all night. TTC runs 24/7. So I'd find the 24/7 lines and make sure that I cross those paths. And one time when I was in hyperfocus, I said, I gotta get out of here. So I did what I did, which was get around people, the creative, boom. It's a response. It's like a survival response sometimes, because I'm feeling crazy. And boom, creativity wants to rise above the feeling. So I rode the TTC for 19 straight hours one day. And when I woke up from it, I was like, ooh, where am I? And I had this poem. And this poem isn't something I necessarily created. It's how I perceived the day in front of me. And it's going all over the place because that's me leaving a bus, going to a streetcar, leaving a streetcar, going to a subway, leaving a subway, or just going between cars because I'm very ADHD and I can't be still. So amongst all of this crazy going on, I'm running around going, yeah! And I'm writing down everything I see. This poem is called Perceptions because this is just how I saw things. I'm piecing it together. Pardon me. If you will, please indulge me in engaging the spirit of radio, if you wish. And that is close your eyes. The eyes always lie. I love podcasts, I love radio. Everyone has to paint their own pictures. And I'm not getting better looking over time, so this is as good as it gets. And if you want to just really indulge in this, please. My voice is actually quite different when you can't see me. So let's see how this goes. And it's a ride, so your eyes will be closed for a while if you do this. Here we go. I'm piecing it together, and it resembles a cultural mosaic with the minorities nominating and the majority dominating. Clickety-clack go the tracks, cutting on black backs for not serving enough flapjacks. Verbal flax will only cause lacks. Funds get shunned in stacks, then they up and raise the tax. Now you can't buy no wax, you gon' have to sell your sacks. Teardrops drop in dollars and cents. We be sitting in the middle of the fence with pockets only full of pence. Hence, we must make a reconnaissance with our common sense and get all pence. If, like, I can see the bigger picture. Here comes the scripture of the lyrical lipster, slipped ya, tripped ya, then a jujitsu flipped ya. Technology blipped ya, society clipped ya, like life was tried, tested, and tenuously true. Switching. The mama's in the kitchen like my brother said she'd be pitching a conniption by the situation that needed stitching. But however, she never did lift the lever on the encryption. So eclectic and enigmatic, though the bowl of her soul was naturally emphatic. She went purely automatic, and all we got from mama was static, lopping off limbs to secure bladed winds. I hear the false and the falsities of a humdrum. I once did stun, and then I stunk. The sweater of my creativity shrunk. I am not who's quick, but dead like a cup of liquid lead. Go Mercury! A strong goblet of silver in my throat made a sliver. So bring me to the giver, and I'll teach him how to share. I'll rip out all his hair and let it float to the earth like celestial webs. So now the tide ebbs, and somewhere in the middle I think I'm swollen. I don't feel whole, but I think I have a hole in my third inner eye. Now that the body is incomplete, a spiritual cyclops. May a blinded soul run rampant through your rivers of repose and your pastures of peace. Goliath will plague pillars like Samson smashing. Moses and God went tablet rehashing. 2 sins and Joshua reaps the wind, so I'm with Joshi. He's gonna crumble the walls of Jericho. He's coming through with ill horn cornucopia of ill flow. Melodies still blow. Felonies, bad stone masons, poor architects. Only you will be disappointed at the edifice erected, at the whip poor workmanship that couldn't be detected. I can feel the changes coming on. Not like menopause, but men must pause and consider applying some feminine laws as society falls and claws out its throat. Emergency tracheostomy for the masses, and still we find ways to smoke ourselves to death, choke ourselves of breath till there's almost nothing left, just like grains of crystal meth, fragile and fragmented, agile and demented, pseudo-stratified, separated and cemented like plasma and hemoglobin, a dim watt light that could still put a strobe in. Anachronistic fashion, anarchistic passion. I am a thief and a liar. I steal truth and run upon rooftops so tin. Inside my head resides a din with a clip and a clop and a pace that won't stop. I am being pursued. Demons are upon me like flies on eyes. The UN tries but blatantly denies its contradictory position when life gets stashed in the name of a mission. Impossible. bull, that every human belly on the swelly be full, because cats, they be starving like Marvin. They're dying in the heat of a city summer swelter. They're sticking to the floors of a frozen bus shelter. Live people by day, but by night, who knows? The homeless death toll, it lives and breathes and grows in the body like cancer, in the mind like neuromancer, pummeling psyches, pounding cerebellums, looking for the button to initiate restart, pulling personified pixels apart. My heart, I am frozen, stuck in the winter net. I have been molested by the mechanical hands of a robotic Jack Frost. I didn't have no backup, so my files got lost. Shuffle through random access, disk defragmenter, file, edit, view, insert, format, tools, table, window, help! Thank you. The whole exclamation point at the end of it is a cry for help. I'll give you maybe two more or one more. I'll give you one more. I'll give you one more. This one is a self-empowerment poem. This poem explains a little bit about how I went through school with what was going on in here. And yay, tribulations, and yay, triumph. That's not the whole poem. I really want everyone to remember this as they grow up. When you're growing up, because we're all growing up, you start to live lives of conviction, if you're lucky, and you decide who you're going to be and what you want to do. It's amazing how fast the words "you can't" come out of other people's mouths. It's just amazing. We live in a compassionate age, and still, "you can't" comes off the hip. It comes from family, friends, enemies, frenemies, pretend to be strangers, comes from anyone. This poem, throughout the story and at the end, keep these two things in mind. When you hear that you can't, you probably can, and you probably should. Amen. This poem is I Can. And thank you. After a decade of delivery on the MIC, unbelievably, people still asking me, what can you do with poetry? That question used to make me angry. It used to get me hot. Now I tell them have a seat and ask them how much time they got. For you see, with poetry, I can duly dance down those same halls of learning where I once had the yearning to be a well-accomplished human with a 4.0, but my GPA was sadly way far below. I never got the knack of the educational flow. They made me sit still, so I stood still. I can confidently, comfortably cruise into classrooms where I was once coerced to create a captured, cornered mental state so I could clearly create a way to hate my own mind by my educators. They were eduhators. They formed a form to form my formative years, tainted with intolerance and a tidal wave of tears that sailed all of my dreams away from me. For they likened my self-image with one of stupidity. It was all that I heard and all that I could see. I can now be free. Where I was once imprisoned by a mental prism, my errant splayed thoughts were like hot-colored rocks. Endless ammunition for the slings of possibility, but impossibly, all of my targets eluded me. For I was living in the kingdom of couldn't be me. I couldn't see the lock, so I didn't need the key. And when they finally let me go, they said, "You don't know poetry." I can versify being victimized into a valiant victory. Verify that when you vilify, you eventually gotta deal with me. The transformation was tremendous. I took the word stupid and I made it stupendous. I began to manhandle the land of language, that language in apathetic and anonymous anguish. I did decide to dissect, then divide indefinitely, indubitably, what diction was doing to me. Stab a psyche with a simile, sometimes slip left of center, see, so as to step off into a soliloquy. Hail the English alphabet with an oral oral atrocity. I can wear the face of mental agility, dispel the myth of dental fragility, and proudly embrace my so-called disability. ADD, ADHD, OCD, PTSD. Now I've made an acronymphomaniac out of me, and never once before have I so ever loved ME. I can turn my inventive imagination into a physical infatuation, not like sugar, not the hard refined, not like sweetener, not the artificial kind. I don't need heroin because I'm a hero in my own mind. Spent some time with my mentality, and what I did find is I can learn. And poetry taught me when the truth is unfurled, I'm the only one man who can change my world, so I can do anything. What can I do with poetry? I ask you. Why don't you tell me? Thank you.
Oh, Wakefield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Woo! Have a seat for a second. We're going to chat for a minute. Okay. One thing, a little bit of order of business. We are going to take an offering this morning because it's our ritual to practice our value of generosity, our spirit of gratefulness, and our desire to share the abundance and the love and the spirit of this community with one another in perpetuity. We don't want it to go anywhere. So we will be very gratefully accepting our offering at this time. If somebody would grab a basket. We're still working on gathering our ushers. Thank you, Pam. And now that it's April, we have a new 4 others. We do share our generosity with the community around us, and we have strong ties to climate justice in this community. The Calgary Climate Hub is our local branch of the national or the international organization that was started by Al Gore, and it's called the Climate Reality Project Canada up here. And their mission is to build and connect networks of empowered individuals in communities across Canada by equipping them with tools and knowledge to bring about new behaviors and policies to lead a low-carbon, resilient, and just future. Woo! That sounds good, yeah. They do training, engagement, and promotion, and our folks, our good folks here at Calgary Climate Hub are all over that. And in fact, I sent out a notice to y'all, in case you didn't see it, on this coming Wednesday night, they're having an Edmonton and Calgary Mayor's Summit on Climate. So that is happening through the Calgary Climate Hub. You can go to their event page. Be a great idea to tune into that and see what our local mayors have to say and how we might be able to support them, because I know we like to rock the vote and advocate on all of these fronts. So let's do our best to show up for that and find out what else we can do. We're always trying to do something. Right? What's the next thing we can do? We're always looking for that. What next thing can we do to try to make this world a better place? So thank you so much for your generosity, and we so appreciate you. And we have a little bit of music and a slide that tells us all the different ways we can give to this community. And we will take care of that business and that.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
Well, Kathy, AKA Cassie, her poet name, she's going to tell us a little bit about what's coming up on See You Friday, and we hope we will see you there.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a poetry unslam, I guess. Wakefield doesn't want to use that term. A true poetry slam, if you want to go to one. Is there every month? And I'm planning on going this April 19th, if anybody wants to go with me, to Dickens Pub.
Woo!
It's going to be a true, if you want to see a true poetry slam, you have to get there about 6:37, and you can put your name up for doing a poem if you want.
And what is a true poetry slam? Tell us. Because some of us have never been to one. What is that like, Wakefield?
If I have my history right, Poetry Slam was developed by Mark Smith in Chicago, Illinois, I think maybe in '76. I could have numbers and names wrong, but I believe it was Chicago. Basically, a poetry slam is a competition. It's competition. It's competition. It's not fun.
Cutthroat.
It's competition. It's not for the weak. It's not for those with easily bruised egos. Everyone in a slam is like me. Everyone is on fire. And it doesn't mean that they have my particular performance style. It means it's that hot. No one is coming up there to read. They are coming up there for you to feel it. That is why I prefer, I need to walk, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you do it.
That is why I prefer performance poetry over written word, because of the lies that we've been told forever. Poetry is anything you want it to be. That's a lie. It's not.
Neither is Unitarian Universalism.
The poet wrote yellow. He meant yellow. He didn't mean coward. He didn't mean sun. He didn't mean canary. He actually meant yellow. So when I perform poetry, at the very least, the feeling of the poem, no one mistakes it. You feel it. Anyone can read. Therefore, they don't come to a reading to hear you read. They want to feel it. Now that's a reading. When it comes to a slam, it works like this. You have at least 4 teams. There's 4 people on each team, 4 poets, plus a 5th alternative. And what happens is me, the slam master who's running the show, I watch everyone coming into the hall. I'm looking for people coming in groups, 1s, 2s, and 3s. This is why. Anyone coming in a group, I won't look at them. Anyone coming in 3s, maybe not. Coming in 2s and 1s, I'm watching those people because they're the scorekeepers. What happens is every single person on every single team gets 4 chances. Each team gets 4 turns at the mic. It can be 4 different poets, it can be duets, trios, group pieces, you get it. There's 4 chances at the mic. You have a timekeeper. Timekeeper, as soon as you engage the crowd, people used to get this wrong. They used to think that it was when you started talking that the time started. No. Because what would happen is you'd get poets coming out and do some very silent stuff long before speaking and get you laughing and get you engaged, like Charlie Chaplin stuff, right?
Oh, that's not fair.
So it's not fair. So the second they can see that you are engaging,
You're performing, man.
that's it.
You're on.
The timer goes. Okay, your poem can only be 3 minutes long with 10 seconds grace time. After 3 minutes and 10 seconds, every 10 or 5 seconds, you lose an increment off of your score. There are no costumes. So if you come up here looking like Joseph in the robes, and that's not your normal stuff outside, immediately disqualified. There are no musical instruments. And I think that applies to people who can beatbox too, because that is musical, so there's a gray area. You can use sound effects here and there. No musical instruments. And finally, no props. Watch this. Prop.
Oh,
I pointed with my glasses. Prop.
Can't do
If I take the mic and turn it into something while it's a prop, you will be disqualified or at least lose marks. The poem is done. Time! 2:48. Everyone starts going, yeah, because you're under time.
right?
It's easy to go over.
Easy.
Then I say, judges! Now this is where it gets ugly. I look for people who are single or doubles because those are people there to appreciate all of the poets. Anyone coming in groups, they're there to support a team. So don't ask them to score. When you give... Sorry.
Yeah.
So don't ask them to score. You want people who are alone or in pairs because they're there to support poetry, not a team. Then you ask for the teams, and you can hold up your 2 big scorecards from 0, I've seen zeros.
Oh,
I've
ouch.
seen zeros, to 0.1 to 9.9 to the all-coveted perfect 10.
10. It's
You
like
have
the
5
Olympics, man.
Oh, yeah, you have 5
Woo.
different scores. You drop the highest score, you drop the lowest score, and now the score is out of 30.
Woo.
That's how you score each poem, and it's elimination.
Okay.
Being a scorekeeper is more pressure than being a poet.
I hear you.
So that's why slam, I like to, and I've been telling Cassie, take it out of her vocabulary, get it out, because it's cutthroat competition, and usually it's not nice.
So how are we going to
So
be
on
different?
Friday, you guys are having yourselves a reading.
Okay.
You're having yourselves a poetry round robin, where
round
everyone
robin.
scores 10 and everyone loves everyone's stuff.
That's
but
right.
Taking the whole competitive slam out of it. Slam is really, I don't even slam anymore. I'm a 3-time champ of this city, 1 in Toronto, and I don't do it anymore. So sooner or later, competing and getting scores kind of invalidates your art after a while.
Gotcha.
Numbers from strangers can't be the reason that you create art. So you're going to have a wicked reading on Friday.
We get, everybody here gets participation ribbons.
And trophies and
Trophies,
gold stars for
participation
everyone.
ribbons, cookies.
We'll still do the
give it to you.
we'll still do the thing where it's just 3 minutes.
Yeah, so it's just 3 minutes.
Bring at least 3 poems.
3 poems,
or 4.
because we'll just keep going around and
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Round robin.
Round
like,
robin.
okay, who's up? Who's got a poem? Who's got a poem? Next, next.
3 minutes is longer than you think.
It's longer
Trust
than you
me.
think.
Yeah.
Just read anything and look at the time. Read at a normal pace and look how long 3 minutes is.
Yeah.
So take your time and don't feel to race through it. Don't suddenly become a rapper now. You know what I mean? Just take your time. And when people are performing, I always say this: please speak a little bit slower than you believe is natural, because it's natural for people to speed up when they're a little bit nervous. Heart rate goes up, sweat a little bit. Even me, I don't eat on days that I do this. I haven't eaten today because I would see my breakfast again. After 22 years, I still get this worked up over it. So
Yeah. All right.
Go.
Well, so we want you all to think about this. And again, this is friendly. We're going to do in person. We're also going to have our Zoom audience with us, so you can certainly watch. And audience participation of cheering and supporting, in this instance, is more than welcome. So we want everyone to come. Try your hand at a poem. Again, this is about expressing yourself, being your true self, embodying yourself, sharing your voice with us. Wakefield, you did such a beautiful job. You were really real with us, man, and I really appreciate that. You shared your life with us, your real self. And this is something poetry can do for us. It's not always easy to talk about the hard stuff, and poetry can be a way that we are able to offer something of ourselves in a way that other people can really see us and hear us, when otherwise our soul might be a little bit shy. This is what educator Parker Palmer tells us, that our soul is a little bit shy. So we got to create these kind of authentic, embodied spaces that are all about wholeness, so that we can really show up for one another and listen to each other. And that's really what it's about. It's about connecting and getting to know one another at this poetry event that we're having. So we sure hope you'll come. We'll be here, and you can certainly join us online, and we're really looking forward to it. We're kind of hoping it'll start people thinking about expressive ways of doing their spiritual practice. This is part of faith formation. This is who we are as people, right? So maybe we'll form a group. And Kathy has done official events for Poetry Month in the past, and COVID kind of this year. But next year, we're thinking ahead already to next year and what we as a community might want to do for Poetry Month next April. So that's all excellent. And I'm just today so delighted to have Wakefield come join us. And to close us out today, because we always close out with music, we have our dearly beloved Melanie Demore. She's going to teach us, we have a tutorial video of one of her songs that I absolutely love. It's called 1 Foot, Lead with Love. And again, this is a metaphor. We know not everybody has walking abilities, but as we move through our lives, we want to lead with love. So she's going to teach us this song, and we're going to do our best to sing along. And in the future, when we get our choir back, then we'll bring some talent up here with the choir. And this will become another one of her pieces. We love I Am Sending You Light. I love this one as well. So please join me. Melanie Demore, she thinks of us as fam now. We are her fam. She prays for our Jane every day in her song prayers. And we're going to learn, if you haven't learned it already, this easy call and response song.
Here's my song, Put One Foot in Front of the Other. And the verses are call and response. And here's how it goes. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared, and I'm scared too. But here I am, right next to you. We gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. We gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love. There you go. That's the song.
Coffee hour, let's go. And Zoom, please stay on Zoom for coffee chat. We'll put up that link for you. We hope you have a good conversation. And you're talking about coming to See You Friday Poetry happening. And the rest of you, please adjourn to Wickenden. There's treats and coffee and good conversation. Have a great day.